Since I talked about Black Manta on Wednesday, it only makes sense to follow up with a review for Aquaman from the same Page Puncher wave. And without further ado, before I talk about the accessories and the figure, let's take a quick look at the data profile card. And as you can see, there is this beautiful comic book artwork of Aquaman fighting the currents within the ocean. That's what it looks like he's doing in this illustration. Pretty cool. On the backside, you do have your usual read-up for who the character is. His real name is Arthur Curry, and it reads, half human and half Atlantean, Arthur Curry is Aquaman, the king of Atlantis, and defender of Earth's vast oceans. As a founding member of the Justice League, he also protects the surface world from the forces of evil. Aquaman's Atlantean physiology allows him to breathe underwater, swim at incredible speeds, and super strength to withstand the depths of the ocean. And that's a pretty good read-up on who Aquaman is as a character, and that's the data profile card. And now let's move on to the accessories. And he only comes with one accessory, which of course is his trident. It would have been nice if he came with some interchangeable hands, but he does not have any of those. It is what it is. So in terms of the overall sculpt of his Triton accessory, I really like how this came out. It is very different from the previous comic book Aquaman figures we've gotten that came with Triton accessories, and I'm going to bring those in for comparison in a bit. But in terms of the sculpt with this one, I really like how it's more detailed than those other ones. So they did a really good job here with this accessory. Now, the one downside is it is, of course, using that soft plastic material, so it's prone to warpage. And as you can see, mine is a little bit warped. I did fix it before I started recording today's review, but it was really bent like this way the whole time. So not good at all, but sculpt-wise, pretty cool. So let's bring in the Triton from the Endless Winter Aquaman figure, and I'm going to zoom out. As you can see, when it comes to the length of these Tritons, I believe this one, yes, the one from the Page Punchers, looks a lot longer in terms of the length because of the fact that the fork part, you know, the blade tip, whatever you want to call this top part, it is bigger. So there you have that. And you can also see that even this one is warped as well. It's not good. But when it comes to the details, this one also has a little bit of sculpted details, right? Very simple. Not a whole lot compared to that one. And it is in a different sort of like gold color as well. So, but I do like this one more from the Page Puncher one because it's like sort of like this gold bronze color. I don't know what to call this sort of, you know, paint, but it looks really good. So there's this one from Endless Winter. Here is the one from the Flashpoint Aquaman. Zooming out again, and here you go. This is the length of it. As you can see, this one is longer still by a lot. And in terms of the sort of like blade part, this one is like crazier looking, right? Usually it's like 3 sort of blades, but for this one you have like multiple you know, spear-like parts on here. And this one also has a bit of sculpting as well. A little bit of whatever this is supposed to be, like some sort of embezzling of some sort of gold material on it. So yeah, not a bad looking Triton, but compared to this one from the Page Puncher version, this is the more superior one in terms of sculpt. So I like this accessory the most. And that's going to cover the Triton accessory. And of course, I don't ever count this because we always get these DC figure stands, so he does come with one. So there's that. And of course, since this is a Page Puncher, he does come with a comic book. And it is, of course, the same illustration that we saw on the data profile card. And it is the same exact comic book issue as what I talked about on Wednesday with my Black Manta review. Everything inside is the same, right? So, and this is the weird thing, is that it took like this many waves until we finally got like what these Page Puncher waves should have been. Where if you are going to do like variant covers, it would be nice if like each comic issue was a continuation of like this sort of like 4-issue story. And that's what I liked about the Ghosts of Krypton wave, was that they did exactly that. But before that wave, every single other Page Puncher wave in this style, using this sort of reimagining, redesign, whatever you want to call this, all the stories were just like a singular issue, and you would just have the same exact comic book, but then they didn't change the covers until Fighting the Frozen and then the Aquaman wave, right? These are the only two waves. Oh, yeah, including the Ghosts of the Krypton that has like these different covers. But prior to, this wave with these comic books, they were all the same cover art, same story. So you just end up having 4 issues of the same exact thing. And it's like, what do you do with them? I have like a stack pile of them in my cabinet where I store my comic book floppy issues. And I don't know what to do with these extra ones. So it's not good, right? But that's my little rant about that whole thing. All right, let's jump into aesthetics. Let's talk about this figure. And right away, I will say this. Compared to the other Aquaman figures, the appeal for this one for me was mainly the sculpt details and the texturing that they did to this one. I really like how they sculpted his like costume sort of like texture stuff here, because in previous versions, let's just bring in the Endless Winter one, you can see how different it looks, right? This is more like a solid sort of texturing. It's like very glossy looking. This one is more scaly. I don't know what the right term is, but you can see how different they look, right, in terms of the sculpting and everything. And also the fact that they tried to put more details into his costume, such as down here with his pants. You can see there's more of these like armor parts, right? Like this bronze sort of color here with these sort of details, which looks really cool. Like, I don't even know what this is supposed to be. Like, is this like a representation of the ocean in some sort of like, mural or something that's part of his armor? Because sometimes there are certain armor designs that characters wear that have like these nice little details on it. And he has a lot of that on here. So it's really interesting, right? Like, this is supposed to represent maybe a seahorse looking design down here. I don't know. But it's really cool. And I also like the fact that his logo for his belt is also like sculpted in this really cool way. And you have all these little details within the belt. I don't know if I'm showing it to the best that I can, but like you can see all that. And just the fact that they were using this sort of paint color for most of these parts really makes it stand out more, because it gives this feeling that it's supposed to be metal. It is some sort of armored material, right? And even the fins down here that he usually has by his boots, and even his shoes. Look at this. You have all these details that are tiny, but they're there. So that's the appeal that sold me on this figure. Now, the one area that I think they did a really bad job with in terms of the paint, though, which is quite unfortunate, is, of course, the armor parts up here. So, for some reason, it's painted really good down here, but then up here, even though you have all these beautiful sculpted details, they, cheaped out with the paint quality on this top part. I don't know why, but that's exactly what happened. And this is like solid plastic down here, right? This is soft plastic up here. So there's some weird things that happen behind the scenes, I think, with the production of this figure. And it's really strange how you have all this good looking stuff on the, lower half, and then on the top half, when it comes to this part right here, it's like the opposite. So now you can make this look better with a silver metallic paint, which I haven't done yet. I want to do it because I painted a few figures with that metallic marker, and the silver just looks better. So I could fix this really easily, of course. But yeah, it's just not great that you have to do it yourself, because clearly you can tell that this figure, they could have done it all for us without us having to do anything to it. So yeah, but again, these details here that are sculpted, it's really beautiful. I like all the stuff that I'm seeing here, even with his gauntlet here, right? You can see more of these sort of patterns. It's very different from the other Aquaman figures that we've gotten, where his costume is more simplistic, where you don't see this sort of like, what do you call it? Over design? I wouldn't say over design. I think it has an aesthetic point. It makes sense that he's wearing some of this stuff because, he's fighting against Ocean Master, Black Manta. He has to have a way to protect himself sometimes, right? So it makes sense to have these things. And then when it comes to his head sculpt, as I lost my track of thought right there, what I was going to say was, which look do you prefer for Aquaman? Do you guys like the bearded look with the long hair, or do you like the design where he doesn't have a beard and he has a short hair sort of look, but he doesn't look evil? Of course, I'm not referring to, this version right here, but I'm talking about, like, the other version where he has, like, the shorter hairstyle, but he's, like, positive and happy vibes, because we did get that with, I believe, the MTD release of Aquaman, which I don't have that version of, but he does have the short hair. So, let me know in the comments below which look you prefer. I prefer the short hair look without the beard. I was never a fan of the long hair and the beard sort of look. It's just not my thing. But for this one, it kind of looks like, a balance between the two looks, I guess. I don't know. It just looks really good. I like the head sculpt. That's what I'm saying. Like, this one, I'm fine with, right? I'm not, like, crazy with, this head sculpt. I actually like this one more. So this is why this head sculpt came out pretty good. And I think they did a really good job with this look. But as you can see, he does have a little bit of long hair on the backside. And he does have his beard. He is wearing some sort of pendant over his neck right here. So there's that. But as you can see, it's not painted in the best way. Like, it's sculpted in there, but the silver paint is quite lacking. So if you want to fix this, of course, you can use silver paint to fix all this and make it stand out a lot more. But maybe it is a quality control issue on my figure. I'm not too sure why it's painted in a way that looks so faded, but there it is. And that's pretty much all the aesthetics for this figure. There's really not much else to talk about. It's just very detailed and textured, but they did a really good job. Just like what they did with Black Manta, I think this Aquaman came out really good, and I like the overall results of this figure. Okay, with that said, let's move on to the articulation, and let's start with the most obvious thing here. This shoulder armor is going to hinder articulation for his right arm a lot, which is quite unfortunate because this is the only arm that has the item holding hand where he can hold his trident, and it just sucks that this is what they chose to do. So now, when you move his arms and stuff, you can get him to go out this much, right? But when you want to lean it this way, outwards, you can't do it because this is going to run into this top part. And if you're wondering if this thing is removable or not, I don't think it is. Actually, let me check. No, it's not. It's like glued in onto the torso. So yeah, it's not even removable. Like, imagine if it was removable, that would have been way better. So yeah. In terms of like going back like this, hindered as well. He does have the bicep swivel, and I did already show the double jointed. It kind of works, right? No, not exactly, but it does have double jointed. And then you also have the swivel and the wrist articulation, right? So this side of the arm is not great. For this side of the arm, you do have more range of motion because there's no shoulder armor getting in the way. So you're going to be able to like spread his arm outward like that. So yeah, I've seen customs where people have removed this thing or just like found a way to like modify it so then you can like put it back on and put it off. So if you want to do all that work, you can. But honestly, for me, I'm not going to do that because, I've never customized a figure to that level. So maybe one day. All right, let's talk about the head sculpt articulation. He cannot look up, which is quite sad, but it makes sense because this hair is going to hinder that. He can look down a little bit. He can turn his head left and right. Not the best because of the hairpiece. He can tilt his head side to side, no problems. So the articulation with the head sculpt is very limiting because of his hair sculpt. So yeah, not great. In terms of the articulation with the torso, you do have the articulation here with the rotation. It's okay. He can lean forward pretty good. So just like Black Manta, he has a really good leaning forward with his articulation, which is surprising. And then leaning back, it's really good as well. So This is what I mean, right? Sometimes they will do it right with the articulation of the upper torso, and it confuses me. Why can't you keep the same standard for every single other figure, right? Where it can lean forward like this, it can lean back. It's that simple, right? Just carve out enough room, and they did exactly that for this figure, which is so nice. And then for his waist area, he does have rotation. It can lean forward, not the best, right? But leaning back, it's okay. So it seems like all the work is going to be up here. So if you want to get him into like a swimming pose, you're going to have to, like, you know, utilize the upper torso a lot. Now, coming down to his legs, he can spread out his legs. Not the best. I'm not sure if his legs are hindered or it's just my copy having some sort of QC issue, but that's as far as it goes. And then when it comes to kicking outward, that's a pretty good kick. When it comes to double jointed, he does have that. He also has articulation in the feet. He has swivel, and he has toe articulation. Okay, it's not working. Here we go. It's really stiff, so he does have that. Now, in terms of the thigh swivels, let's see if they work. It works on one leg. What about this side? It also works on this side. So thigh swivels do exist. But when it comes to doing the splits, he's not going to do that. Maybe it's just my copy. Maybe your copy is different. So it could be a quality control issue. And that's pretty much it for the articulation for this guy. Really simple. There's going to be hindrance in some areas, but you can still probably get him into some sort of action pose. Maybe. So, yeah. Okay, let me show him with his Triton on. And this part is a hassle. So getting this Triton into his hand is probably not the funnest thing because of how his hands are not soft PVC. So what you want to do is you kind of want to just like push this in between his fingers. And I can't show this on camera, unfortunately, but let me just try to get this in there. All right, I was able to get the Triton into his hand. This is what he looks like with it in his hand, and as you can see, it is quite warped a little bit. If I flip it this way, it's like literally like bent this way, so it's not great. And the summer weather is not helping at all because of how hot the temperature is right now in Southern California. But yeah, that's pretty much what he looks like with the Triton. And now let's move on to some comparisons. And instead of having them stand here and, you know, just show the figures like usual, I'm going to zoom in on their faces so you can get a sense of like how they look like, you know, how different they are. So here he is with the Endless Winter version. And I hope I'm doing this in the best way possible. And as you can see, they retain this very similar look, right? The bearded long hair style. Now, of course, this version has the more pale skin tone. This one has a more tannish skin tone. So, very different. But in this case, which head sculpt looks better? Let me know in the comments below. And which version do you like the most? So, there is that Aquaman. Here he is next to the other one. And as you can see, the head sculpt is once again the bearded long hair look with this one from the Plastic Man build wave. And in terms of the whole like long hair bearded look, I actually like this one as well. I think I said it in my review a while back when I did make a video for this guy that I actually like this head sculpt more than the Endless Winter one. So yeah, there is the comparison between these two. So there's that. And of course, here he is with the Angry Face one. The most hideous looking one of them all, because this is what happens when you don't give your figures alternate head sculpts and they're stuck with one facial expression. That is not something pleasant to look at every time I stare at my shelf sometimes. And I've put them in a bin right now because I've been organizing, so it's been great not to wake up seeing his face. It's so bad. Yeah, but there you go. Flashpoint Aquaman right here. And now for the last comparison, I will actually have him stand on the table. So let me just try to get him into a standing pose because we want to set this up. Okay, don't fall over. Let me zoom out. Here he is next to his nemesis. So there are the two of them together, and I like this a whole lot. Like, look at this. The redesign of these characters with this like newer style, whatever they were trying to go for, it works for these two versions from this Page Puncher wave. And this Page Puncher wave in particular, I really like most of the figures from it. So, Ocean Master, Aqualad, we'll get to those soon enough. But there you go, the two of them together. And that's pretty much the final comparison for today's review. And if you enjoyed today's review on this Page Puncher Aquaman figure, give this video a like. If you want to subscribe to the channel for more action figure content and whatever else I do on here, it would be much appreciated. And with that said, take care, and I will see you in the next video.